pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda, but we don't have an agenda. The agenda for tonight is we're going to cover, and then any general business will be handled at the end. So,
I just have one question. Are we testing the system tonight? Or, because that was, I thought we only voted last night to trial it.
That man's been testing the system for years to come, so don't you worry about it.
Focused on you there.
So I just wanted to clarify that, because the paper said that we had voted to do it, but I thought we'd only voted to trial it.
Once, trial.
I think it was a trial. But,
That we were going to see what happened and then vote on it after we saw the result.
yeah. Yeah.
I have a question on, before we get started, on the public input part of things.
Yeah.
Didn't we take Phyllis's recommendation?
Each topic, yeah.
So we'll all talk about it, then we'll have public input, then we'll vote.
Before we vote, not during the vote. But it's too hard to put that all on a, so I just say public input up front. But that was the way we voted on it.
Thank you.
Now, the other reason, although the plan was to do planning first, the other reason, we do have a couple of guests who could help us out with the Lakes Region Planning Commission, because there's always been a discussion by this committee on the pluses and minuses of that, and so it'd be good to get that topic visited first. Okay, the subcommittee can lead off.
Okay, you should all have the summary, the one-page summary of our subcommittee meeting. We met this last Tuesday, and I'll just briefly go through this. You can have the individual budget pages open, of course, if you'd like. Overall, this budget totals just under $250,000. There is a slight change to the number shown in the book. It's down by $231 because the estimated number for LRPC membership was, we got a firm number and it was 231 less than what was in the book. So when we do vote on this at the end, it'll be slightly less there. Overall, this represents a reduction of about $45,000 or 15% from last year. Most of that comes from salaries. They moved from what was a four full-time person department to what this year will be 2 full-time and 2 half-time people. So you'll see a corresponding drop in their full-time salary line and an increase in their part-time salary line. The net salary change is about $14,000 less. That brings along with it, though, a number of other personnel-related costs, reductions, benefits, insurance, etc., that total about $36,000. On the discretionary spending side, overall spending there was down as well, about $4,600 or 15%. This was driven by phone costs primarily, some reductions in books and publications, and equipment maintenance. We got a new copier. I think that had a lot to do with it in the department in terms of equipment maintenance, lowered the cost. Telephone costs is one of those lines that is just given to the department, and we had that, so the department head, when you're meeting with them, really doesn't know why it's gone up or down. And we had that discussion briefly in our session, that maybe that I understand the need for breaking that out so you can get a clear picture of what each department truly costs, but it might be helpful on lines like telephone to also have a cumulative total that's explained by by Jeff or Scott or someone, so we know what's happening globally, because otherwise department managers really don't know. At least my understanding is they don't know. So That was the results for both non-discretionary and discretionary spending overall down. The items at the subcommittee, after getting some background on those numbers, on the salary numbers, and also talking briefly about what some of the workload volume in the department was, what's changed from one year to the next in terms of applications or inspections or that sort of thing. We focused on two specific areas. One was the LRPC annual fee. And we had this, for those that were here last year, we had this same discussion last year where we talked through the value and purpose of LRPC, and we had Mr. Goulet here last year as well, and Mr. Waite. And that's those same questions were taken up this year. And so we asked John at the time, well, first we said this is an issue that has to come back to the full committee, and we all have that discussion. And John said he would be able to reach Mr. Goulet again, and I think Sheldon Morgan may be attempting to show up as well because his department has quite a bit of involvement with LRPC. So hopefully they can participate in that discussion, but that's something we need to talk through now. And the other issue is just overall workload department, or overall department workload and activity. We have some numbers there that show some of the reductions that the department has experienced in terms of overall permits issued year to date. Skip indicated that you may have some additional questions on that after reviewing the figures further. So those were the two open items, and because there were those open items, we are not coming with a specific recommendation until those things are discussed. But in order to open the discussion, I think I'll just make a motion on the total amount, and
Yeah,
we could
let's
get
do
that
that.
second, and then we can move forward from there. And the total amount, I got to do, I don't think I did the math yet.
249,076.
Oh yeah, I did do it. Sorry. Yeah, the total amount is $231 less than what's shown in the book, and that comes to $249,076. So I move that the committee approve the planning department budget in the amount of $249,076.
So moved.
Second.
I should say.
Okay, so now.
All right. Some discussion?
I think it would be appropriate, perhaps for the guests, and any questions for the guests, or open it up to the public there on that, because we are trying to understand, again, overall involvement, value to Guilford. My personal questions included, are there similar agencies throughout the state that's, say, a quasi-layer of government, and are we able to go directly to the state and get those same services at a better value? And those are the type of questions that we talked about in the subcommittee that want to bring forward, and perhaps our guests can answer.
Yeah, maybe that's a good.
Is Sheldon coming? Do you know?
He said he would, and I don't know. So
I imagine we can start, and I was thinking of maybe talking about the overall volume questions first, just to give Sheldon a time to show up, because I think.
Okay, we can do that because that'll be easier and less extensive.
I just had a question
Yes,
on the budget.
Bill.
I was, when I was looking at this today, I was just wondering, I know that you kept the master plan update open. When was the last time we had a master plan done, and when should it be, when do we need to reevaluate that?
we had an overhaul in 2004. So that's when it was approved. It was
Yes,
over a
for
period
you.
of time. But the planning board is looking at doing a, tonight we're going to talk about the master plan. The board does not want to do a large revision though. Just plan on discussing it, looking at what kind of a small update might be appropriate.
You know, just as an aside, if we're going to really use this, should every speaker be standing at the podium? Otherwise, there's no chance we're going to hear him on this recording. So
Yeah, they should.
you got to step up to the podium if you get asked another.
Do you want me to repeat that?
No,
No.
that's right.
This is the learning night.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought there was a camera back here showed
Well,
the
there's
audience.
cameras, but the microphone
Oh.
won't pick them up. That's
Fred,
Could anybody on the subcommittee address the professional development and training and meetings and dues? Just noticing that the year-to-date was $203 and $253, and last year the whole thing wasn't used, and I see it's reduced, but do you know what that is actually for? I'm trying to, you can address that if you don't.
Yeah, the professional development training, I was able to register earlier for a conference I went to this year, the National Planning Conference, and I used some funds that were still in our account last year. So, and I haven't charged all of the expenses of that trip yet. To that, there's some transportation costs. Also, we have recently attended with the board members the law lecture series, which comes out of this as well. So it's another charge that will come out of that.
What is that series?
It's sponsored by the Office of Energy and Planning and the Municipal Association. They give an update on excuse me, the changes in laws through the year, and not necessarily just that year, but there are 3 lectures, and we've had a number of planning board members and conservation commissioners go to those lectures and staff.
There's no concern, or was there discussion, I'm guessing, but no concern? Just
That's right. We had a discussion, we had no concern.
excellent, all right.
I got a question. You got 2 cell phones listed here, I think a total of $1,040. You only have 1 employee who's stationed in the field. What's the use? What's the reason for the second cell phone? At taxpayer expense.
I have a cell phone assigned to me as well, so and that's choice, I believe, of the selectmen to assign cell phones to some staff. I don't know who all gets it, but I do, and our building inspector does.
John, I took a look at some of the numbers from the spreadsheets, the printed spreadsheets that you gave to us at the meeting. And in looking at the cost of the department last year and looking at the number of permits, 527 altogether, at a cost of $323,000 round numbers. It's about $600 plus per permit to actually process. And depending on how this year comes out, with the reduced staff, you're going from 4 to 3 full-time equivalents. It puts the pricing up a little bit, depending on how the permits come out. But my question is there an industry standard as to a benchmark that says this kind of activity should cost X amount of dollars? Because I'm looking at this saying, for every permit that was processed last year, you've got 1,000 man days, and that basically says, well, we're spending 2 man days approximately of cost to handle every single permit that was issued last year. And I kind of look at that and go, isn't that kind of high?
I'm not aware of any industry standard. Obviously our department covers more than just permits or any application like that. We get phone calls. We help people who are looking at developing the property. Spend a lot of time helping people at the counter, on the phone, and then in other ways as well, just things that can't be really measured in terms of an application per se. So, it's hard to figure out, I suppose, or apply specific numbers to, dollar value, I guess. That would be my response. I don't know.
And you support a couple of other commissions also, which takes X amount of your time, I would presume.
Right.
Conservation Commission.
Historic district.
Right, historic, there are 4 boards: the Board of Adjustment, Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Historic District Heritage Commission.
So you could probably take that, I don't know what percentage is it, I'm not defending one way or
Right.
the other, but there's some percentage of your department's effort
Yeah.
is lopped off there,
And-
that has no value.
Exactly.
And I would imagine that some of that time, as you said, on the phones and things like that, sort of like, you know, in any industry, some amount of time is spent in quote-unquote pre-sales type deal to help guide a consumer through the process, but it all still ends up, at least in the permitting process, as being, you know, here's time that's spent on a per permit basis. And I was just curious whether, you know, if there are some averages to see if we are above, below, or pretty much spot on.
About the only way I can think of to apply an industry standard would be with our permit fees. And this last November, we did raise those, the selectmen raised them. We presented some suggestions and they approved them. But we compared them to local communities to see where we stand in relation to them on what they charge. For a number of years, we didn't charge very much for permits. I think it was the same fee for 20 years or something. And we've raised fees 2 or 3 times in the past 10 years, I know. And the latest one, even though our permits have been down, we've got more revenues coming in. So I'm not sure if that's, I imagine that is a factor of, or a function rather, of the increased fees. It could also be that there are a couple of larger projects, but one larger project that we have going on right now that's generating more fees than a typical project would.
Yeah. Well, I would tend to look at more at fees at pricing per the market. You know, well, they're charging this much, so we can charge that much. I'm trying to get more to the actual cost of the service.
One of the things that, I'm not going to disagree with you, Skip, but one of the reasons why we had actually raised the fees last year, or at least I'll just speak for myself, why I voted for it, is just because what we felt was, again, because of the economy is going down, construction is going down, permits are going down, that the fact of the matter is that the users pay for that service. So that way it's not a cost that's, we tried to control that cost from being spread by all the taxpayers in the town of Guilford. So as a result of raising those fees considerably, some of those dramatically were raised, so that in essence it becomes a user fee versus the whole town just paying for it.
Okay.
Right, and you'll notice too that a lot of these expenses are paid for out of user fees. Some of the postage, a lot of the postage, in fact, because we are mailing out notices to abutting property owners, and we have applicants pay an abutter notification fee. So, yeah, that's a significant amount because it's a certified mailing that goes out. So that adds up very quickly. The other is the registry of deeds. We recover almost all of those. Rarely do we record something on behalf of the town and have it come out of that line item. Everything there should be paid for by applicant fees.
Yeah, and we had talked about that during the subcommittee meeting, and I'm okay with that. I'm just looking at, again, the number of permits are going down. The level of construction activity that we talked about during the committee is down. And while the selectmen certainly lowered the number of labor hours in that department, I'm wondering if we should not lower them even more, because I don't see the economy picking up anytime soon. And I'm still wondering if we are overstaffed. So that's why I'm asking what do we have for any kind of industry benchmarks? And I'm a little surprised we don't have any in that way. How long does it take to process something? I mean, almost every private sector industry has a price benchmark that accountants will use to tell an owner or a manager, yeah, you're pretty much hitting the industry standard.
Yeah.
Again, Skip, I wouldn't disagree with you either, and that's why in the last couple of years the selectmen have looked at this department really closely. All the department managers would obviously say that we've looked at all the departments closely, but especially with planning because of the nature of their business. That's why when they had 4 full-timers, we reduced it to 3 full-timers. We took away that associate from getting, that employee from getting benefits last year. This year, of course, for this new year, this budget that hopefully will get approved, it goes down even further, so now we would only have 2 full-timers, the department manager and the building inspector, and then 2 part-timers, again with no benefits. So obviously we're going to need a department manager, we're going to need a building inspector, and you only have 2 part-timers.
Yeah.
So it's not that the Board of Selectmen is going to stop looking at every single solitary department, every single solitary job, But at the same time, this department has been affected in these last couple of years because of the nature of their business.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that you haven't been.
No, I think the way they handle this, I mean, there's no solution to this other than what you've already said. If somebody wants to amend the number, it'll come out that way. Dave?
Gus, as John had mentioned, there is a revenue stream that comes in from those permits. Do you have a spot anywhere that shows what they do collect for that, or is that just something that goes into a general fund?
The money would go to a general fund if I'm correct, right, Scott?
Yeah.
But obviously, they'd be able to show from fees and revenue, so he is able to see that.
Okay, do we know what that number is year to date?
Jeff, do you have any idea of that?
Yep, for building permits, it's just over $26,000 as of the end of September. And for the application fees for planning and zoning, it's about $5,500.
So about 31,500 altogether?
Right.
So I suppose it's not self-supporting.
Oh, no.
Not even close.
It would never be.
Yeah, you can't, I don't think you can expect this department to ever be self.
Neither is the town clerk, tax collector, neither is the police department, neither is DPW, neither is the fire department. To be able to.
Right, I don't see the benefit to the general taxpayer here. I mean, fire department, it's a public safety issue. Same with police. I mean, very few people actually use the planning and land use. I mean, for me, I think it's the most bloated bureaucracy in the town, and I'm still puzzled why we're carrying a $87,000 a year building inspector through the winter months when there's hardly any building permits. I mean, can we knock them down part-time in the winter, or what's he doing?
He's inspecting, you know, we can certainly bring in records of inspections if that's something you want to see. But
Well, what I'm saying is, I mean, would you argue that the number of building permits really decrease in the winter months? I mean,
yeah, there is a.
he can't possibly be occupied 100% of the time doing inspections.
He also does code enforcement, and there are a number of violations he's tracking down because he's got to make good use of his time, and he juggles what he can when he's got time available and fills his time accordingly. So.
Has there ever been any discussion about subbing his position out, subcontract inspections, and relieve the town of the legal liability of missing something, or God forbid Dave falls in a cellar hole and breaks his leg?
I've never had that discussion with anybody.
The selectmen, no?
No, it hasn't come up in our discussions. Obviously, we've looked at, we're not at all opposed to privatizing as much as we can. Again, the responsibility of a building inspector as well as a code enforcement officer is pretty important. We would never be opposed to any kind of privatization of any service, at least looking at it.
I mean, that particular inspector undoubtedly would not stick around. I mean, if he was made part-time, he could not afford to.
I understand that, and I have nothing against Dave. I'm just looking at a total cost of $87,000 a year, and I just can't justify it to the taxpayer. It's very, very daunting for me.
So you had something? Sue?
Jeff, is there any way to see what the figures were for the building permits and the application fees for last year to make a comparison?
Do you have a revenue tab in your budget book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just tell me about.
Probably on the first page of that. Second page of that. It starts at the bottom of the first page, business, I'm sorry, on the second page.
That the revenue was up
It's actually the bottom half, building permits on page 3. So, last year, that was just under $42,000 for.
Now wait a minute here, I can't find the revenue. Where is it?
Did the fees change from last year to this year?
Yes, they changed it about November last year.
November 1st.
Where is the revenue tab?
The very end of the book.
That's what I thought, but I
Very
still thought it was in the
last
front. Sorry.
Other government.
Other government.
It's only one page.
Scott, other governments?
No.
It's the very back of the book.
That is the back of the book.
Last piece of white paper in the book should be a revenue kit.
It's other government.
No.
That's not revenue.
No, that's not it. It's just tax sharing.
That's Laconia Airport Authority tax sharing.
I can get you a copy of that section.
I'd just like to, just,
But that is the number for last year.
What was the number last year?
Last year, it was, for just the various types of building permits, it was 41,867.
31?
41.
Do we know if that's trending up or down?
Down.
Yeah, it's down. It's 26 so far this year. We'll
And
get to
it is
41.
up. In 2009, it was 30,365. I'm guessing that upward trend has a lot to do with anniversaries and the increase at the end of the year. Otherwise, I'm expecting that would be flatter down slightly.
Okay, another question. Is there any way to break out the permits? We have 347 permits of all types. How many of those are remodeling or renovation, and how many are new housing starts?
Yeah, we provide that at the end of the year in the annual report. I didn't come prepared with that, sir, tonight. If you'd like some more details for that, we can probably provide that information.
Skip, do you still have that list?
I do in my notebook. My notebook is at home.
Okay, okay. Because he did provide us something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it did have a breakout, but it doesn't quite have, if I remember right, John, it doesn't say renovation versus anything else. It's not quite the way that we would think of renovations versus electrical versus plumbing versus brand new
Okay.
stuff.
I guess I was under the impression that they were down dramatically, and 347 looks to be a pretty
Well, I
big
think the
number.
total would give you a feel for what. I mean, whether you break it out or not is sort of immaterial, isn't it?
Well,
Well, I think the housing starts are important, and I think the renovation starts are, renovation permits are important. Kind of gives you a handle on what's going on in town.
Yeah, but all I'm saying, as far as this department goes, I mean, I would think total number gives me the story, because if he goes out for a renovation or goes for a new house,
But I like detail. You like the big picture's good enough for you. I want to know what's going on.
anyway. Anything more?
Is it, I mean, anybody that's read the newspapers in the last 2 years will realize that there's an overabundance of housing around the market, so new construction's way down. There's more than likely more and more houses heading towards foreclosure, and they'll end up on the market as well. So things are going to get worse before it gets better. So we're looking at less and less new home construction. Commercial construction doesn't look any better. I mean, at what point do we say, we need to trim the entire department down sizably from the other side of the office as well? Have you looked at that, the future trend?
I have, and I know that cycles come and cycles go. It's up and down. We were way up a few years ago, and we had no extra help, no extra funding, and it was very difficult. But in fact, our inspector was offered some additional assistance, but he said, you know what, I can do it. I will muddle through the difficult time. And I'd hate to see him thrown to the side of the street, when the going gets a little rough, because I think this won't last for too much longer. I did talk with an engineer yesterday who said that he has had a huge uptick in his business. So, I don't know if that applies to everybody out there. I don't imagine it does, but that was encouraging for me to hear that he's busier. It's more affordable to get a loan. It's Construction's pretty cheap these days.
Yeah, but credit's tightened right up. It's more affordable but tougher.
And we're already experiencing a double dip in the housing market price and valuation.
Well,
I just had a quick question on the vehicle maintenance line. I mean, it's only budgeted at $1,000, but over the past 3 years, we haven't spent anything. Does that fall under DPW, or is that?
It used to, but now we divide out those kinds of things according to where the different expenses originate. And because we have 2 cars assigned, or sort of assigned to the department, we have those 2.
It's time to change the oil.
That was my other, you have 2 cars?
What's that?
You have 2 cars, which department? Okay. Thanks.
you had something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to address the comment that was made, you know, if we're looking down the road. We are constantly looking down the road, we're constantly looking at what are we gonna do with this department and with all the departments involved. So the question, you know, to answer that question, yeah, we are looking down, not just at this year, but, you know, a couple of years ago, that's what we were looking at, and keep trimming and keep trimming. Again, have we made some dramatic cuts? Absolutely. Are we anticipating that we're going to have to continue to make dramatic cuts? Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, I would love to believe that the economy is coming up, but I'm not one of them. I work in the food industry. I see everybody. I see the millionaire, and I see the poor person, and everybody's struggling. So I'd love to say that the economy is going to rebound, or is rebounding. I don't see it. So, to answer the question, yeah, we are looking at every department, and we've made some dramatic cuts, and are we going to have to continue to look at them? Absolutely.
I guess my feeling is that, go ahead, sir.
On a slightly different subject, is it absolutely necessary that I presume you have a car, John?
We don't. It's not assigned to me specifically anymore. It used to be, but it's not.
We
Are there 2 cars on the road, 2 planning cars on the road all the time?
Well,
One.
just one.
The building.
For the building inspector. And then the other car is here for any town employee to wind up using, whether it's going to a training,
Okay.
whether it's going to a different facility.
Staples.
But the second car gets put under this vehicle maintenance, is it? Because
Yep,
Kevin
it
just
does.
Yep,
asked, yeah.
yep.
No, it
Just
seemed to me that this is an area where it's sort of a necessary evil, even though it's not something you think about every taxpayer using. And you know, this discussion might help the selectmen at least hear other people's view of, yeah, maybe you outsource a building inspector. First of all, you have to assess, are there sources for qualified building inspectors where you can go to a pool and get one, like rent a secretary or something. Those are probably old words, but go with my age. But I mean, it would bother me.
Croc TV.